Cleaning and taking care of your machine is so important. If you have any trouble with your Husqvarna Viking Designer EPIC 2, get in, change the needle, and clean out underneath this throat plate. Now, I've pulled out 3 tools that you have included with this machine that are going to help with this, and I'm going to tell you all my secrets for how quick and easy this can be and ways that you can save yourself tons of headaches. Now, this is something we're going to do about every 2 to 5 bobbins. And yes, it sounds not like very much, but when you think about how much sewing you get out of a bobbin, even when you're embroidering for all day, you're going to find that there's a lot of bobbins that you'll go through, but maybe not as many as you actually think. People always say, well, I do it every 8 hours. Well, is that 8 hours of on time or is that sewing time? Well, go with the bobbin theory, where as you empty bobbins, that's when you know how much sewing you've actually done. Now, fabric that you're working on. If you love to sew on cotton and flannels, you might need to do this more often. You'll know as soon as you get inside here, what you see might surprise you. If you work on a lot of batting, you sew and quilt through a lot of layers, minky, cuddle fabrics. Those are all very linty projects as well. All right, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm reaching up towards the top of my machine and I'm clipping the thread. So instead of dragging this thread backwards by taking the spool all the way off my machine, I've clipped it and I'm pulling the thread out the needle area. So it's just that much, and now it's out. If you've noticed that there's a lot of lint at your needle area, what you don't want to do is pull that lint up through the top area of your machine, up through the take-up lever, tension disc. That's not where you want more lint to gather up. Next, let's go ahead and take out the needle. I know your manual will tell you to turn off the machine. I am a fan of having the light on, so if you want, you could unplug your foot control, still leave the power attached so that light could be on. Next, let's take the presser foot off, just slide it towards you. That's as far as you need to go. If your IDF is actually engaged, you could even move that out of the way. All right, next, take your screwdriver, this time at the other end. Oh, let's take our bobbin door off, our bobbin out. Now, our screwdriver at the other end has a little area. You're just going to get underneath this and give it a little twist. Notice there's no screws. That's how easy it is to get into this machine. You see that it lifts off, so I'm going to point out when we go to put it back in. There's these little nubs on the back side that we line back up with the back edge of the machine, and then we're going to push down really hard. Okay, one part off, 2 parts off. This little U-shaped part comes off next. Set that aside, and your bobbin case is going to lift out. Now at this point, you need to use a brush to brush and pull the lint and yuck out of here. Don't use canned air. Please don't use canned air. That's going to push more in, and that's bad. So don't, oh, see, I've already got stuff in this machine. Doesn't take much. So we'll just go in, give it that little swish. You can use a small brush. You could use a makeup brush. You can use a Q-tip, whatever it's going to take to get anything out of your line of sight that's in this way. If you see little threads sticking up, this is your thread cutter. You can pull those out as well. Like that one. There we go. Once it's clean, you can take your bobbin case. These little points are going to face towards the back of the machine. It only goes in one way. So once it sits down in that little groove, you will see that it will rotate slightly. Make sure that it hasn't gotten too far off to the side. That's just not good. So just make sure those points are pointing back. This little U-shaped area just snuggles up towards the front of the machine and sits down nice and flush. So again, it only fits in one way. And I already showed you those little parts on the back side of the throat plate will fit right into the back, and then just push down hard until you get that click. Now, I am a fan of putting the needle in absolutely last. So you'll see me put the foot on. I'll pull down the IDF in the back just so I don't forget. Bobbin goes in. I'll thread the machine too. The other thing we want to make sure is when we put our needle in, that we get it all the way as high as possible. And a great way to check that would be to make sure that you're always using your needle threader, because that will be a great way to see if it is all the way positioned correctly. needle flat side to the back. If you haven't changed the needle, obviously this would be a good time to, after you clean it, to go ahead and put a new needle in. As you tighten the screw with that magnetic screwdriver, give this a little twist. See how it's magnetized? It will hold right there. We don't want to crank down too tight, but you do need to tighten it enough so it is snug. And that is so easy to over tighten if you use all your force, so that's never a good idea to do too much tightening. Trust me, your screw will stop working at that point. All right, I'm going to just show you what we're talking about. We'll put everything back together. We'll test out that needle threader, and when you go to sew, we can see that and hear that everything got back together correctly. So once a year, have your machine taken into your Husqvarna Viking Service Center. They're the ones that go through all the rest of the machine, keeping it in top running condition.